I went hiking last weekend. It was supposed to be my way of coping after the breakup. I thought I'd clear my head and reconnect with nature. I'm 35 and a gym teacher, so I'm used to being active. I've hiked in these woods before, but this time felt different. At first, everything seemed normal. The sun was shining and I felt the warmth on my skin. I loved the smell of damp earth and the sound of leaves crunching under my boots. But soon, I noticed strange carvings on the trees. They were symbols I didn't recognize. Maybe it was just local art. I shrugged it off, but a twinge in my gut wouldn't go away. As I went deeper, the atmosphere changed. I heard rustling behind me, but when I turned around, nothing was there. That made my heart race. It was quiet again, but something felt off. I kept moving forward, my eyes darting back to the trees. The woods felt alive, like they were watching me. Later, I stumbled upon a makeshift camp. It was strange. Old gear was lying around, a torn blanket, broken tools, and a ration pack. This didn't look like a normal camp. My unease grew. I half expected someone to jump out from behind a tree, but there was nobody. That night, I set up my tent, still feeling jittery. I thought I'd sleep well, but the opposite happened. I kept dreaming about the woods. Shadows moved just out of reach. They felt real. I woke up in a cold sweat, breathing heavy. I thought I saw something outside my tent, but when I zipped it open, there was nothing except trees and darkness. The next day, I felt a strange sense of dread. I felt like I was being watched. Every snap of a twig made me jump. I decided to head back home. The carvings on the trees looked different now, almost alive. I kept glancing over my shoulder, expecting to see something lurking behind me. It was a long trek back. When I finally left the woods, I felt a bit of relief, but also trembling disbelief. I thought it was all in my head, but something stayed with me. Ever since I got home, I felt like something followed me. I couldn't shake that feeling, like I was still being watched. I've been sleeping poorly, waking up every night with that same cold sweat. The nightmares don't stop. I keep thinking about those carvings in that camp. I wonder if I should have stayed away. I tell myself it was just the stress of the breakup, mixing with my imagination. But deep down, I feel like I made a mistake. I shouldn't have ignored those signs in the woods. I can't shake the feeling that whatever was out there is still with me. And that scares me the most. Maybe it's not over. That week dragged on. Each day felt heavier than the last. I tried to focus on my gym classes, but my mind would drift back to the woods. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was waiting for me. I even avoided running in the park. I was afraid of crossing paths with whatever I had stirred up. On Friday, I found a moment of courage. I Googled for local hiking groups, hoping someone might know about those carvings. As I scrolled through the pages, I stumbled on a forum discussion that made my skin crawl. People shared stories about weird noises, strange sightings, and those same carvings I had seen. The users seemed to know more than they let on. One post caught my attention. A user named Forest Watcher described something they'd encountered. A dark figure lingering just out of sight, watching them as they hiked. I felt a chill as I read about their hair-raising experience. They warned others to avoid the woods after dark and mentioned a recent disappearance of a hiker in the area. I read the post 4 times, my heart pounding. That night, I tossed and turned. I had a dream that felt all too real. I was back in the woods, standing in front of a tree covered in those twisted symbols. The bark seemed to peel back, revealing something beneath. I heard whispers. They were calling my name, luring me closer. My instincts screamed at me to run, but I felt rooted to the spot. Just as I tried to turn, a shadow darted out from behind the tree. I woke up with a start, my heart racing. It was still dark outside. I reminded myself it was just a dream, just my mind playing tricks. I rolled over, trying to shake the feeling of dread. But then I heard it, a soft scratching sound, just outside my window. I froze. The sound continued, rhythmic and persistent. It was like fingernails dragged against the wood. I sat up, my breathing shallow. Taking a deep breath, I gathered the courage to peek out the curtains. Nothing. The yard was empty, just the shadows of trees swaying in the faint light of the street lamp. I tried to convince myself it was just an animal, but when I got back in bed, the hair on my arms stood up. I felt a pull, like I was being summoned to the woods again. I couldn't shake it off. The next day didn't feel any better. I decided to visit the local library to dig deeper into the strange happenings. Perhaps someone around town had more insights. As I moved among the shelves, I spotted an old book on local folklore. Flipping through it, my fingers froze on a page filled with sketches. There they were, the symbols. They were described as ancient marks made to ward off spirits that haunted the woods. The hairs on the back of my neck prickled. This wasn't merely a story. I had unwittingly walked into something much larger than myself. And just as I whispered a quiet prayer, hoping to shield myself from whatever I awoke, my phone buzzed. An unknown number. I hesitated, my gut tight with unease. When I answered, a chilling voice echoed through the speaker. "You shouldn't have come back." I stood there, phone pressed against my ear, heart racing. It felt like the voice had seeped into my bones. "Who is this?" I managed to ask, my voice barely a whisper. Silence stretched out. Just when I thought the call had ended, the voice returned, colder this time. "It's watching you." I hung up, my hands trembling. I couldn't tell if it was a prank or something far more sinister. One thought consumed me. I had to go back to the woods. I needed answers. Ignoring my instincts was easier than admitting fear, and curiosity gnawed at me too. With shaky hands, I grabbed my backpack and filled it with essentials. Water, a flashlight, my phone. Was it foolish to think I could go to the woods and come back unscathed? I drove the familiar road, anxiety pressing in on all sides. Trees stood tall and dense, much like my growing dread. When I reached the trailhead, the air felt different, thicker, almost as if it carried whispers of long-forgotten stories. The sun hung low in the sky, casting eerie shadows. I hesitated, but felt that pull again, urging me deeper. As I walked, the sounds of the forest faded. No birds, no rustling leaves, just an unsettling silence. I tried to focus on my breathing, reminding myself that it was just nature, nothing more. Then I spotted them, the symbols carved into a tree near the clearing where I had found them before. My heart raced. I stepped closer, examining the marks. They were just as I remembered, gnarled and twisted. Just then, a chill ran down my spine. I wasn't alone. I whipped around, scanning the area behind me. Shadows danced among the trees, but nothing was there. Just my imagination? I wanted to believe that. Moving cautiously, I decided to venture further down the path. It opened up to a small clearing where I had never been. At the center, a small stone altar stood, covered in moss and surrounded by those same strange symbols. My stomach dropped as I realized what I had stumbled upon. A sudden noise, a snapping branch, made me spin around. My breath hitched as I noticed a figure lurking just out of sight. It was tall and dark, blending into the trees. It felt like the woods had closed in around me, trapping me. "Hello?" My voice cracked, fear bubbling up. The figure didn't move. It felt like time suspended. I thought of running, but froze at the thought of turning my back. Instead, I took a step closer. As I did, a small glint caught my eye on the altar. Something shiny lay among the moss. Against my better judgment, I reached for it. That's when I saw it. A pendant, intricately designed with those familiar symbols. The instant I touched it, an overwhelming sense of dread swept over me, and a voice whispered in my ear, "You shouldn't have come back." Before I could react, the shadows around me pressed in, and darkness enveloped everything. My heart raced as I sensed something closing in. Panic surged. I needed to get out, but the path was gone. I jolted awake, gasping for air, heart pounding in my chest. I was still in the clearing, the pendant clutched tightly in my hand. The shadows hadn't moved, but they felt closer now, almost tangible. The panic surged again, forcing me to remember how I'd gotten here. I had to move. I turned to run, but the ground beneath me felt unsteady, as if it were shifting. I stumbled, catching myself against a tree. The bark scratched my palm. I could hear nothing but the sound of my rapid breathing and the quiet rustle of leaves. "Get a grip," I muttered to myself. I raised the flashlight, illuminating the area around me. The beam danced over the altar, the symbols etching eerie shadows on the ground. I needed to get out of here, but something pulled at me. The pendant. I dropped it, watching it settle among the moss. Was this a mistake? Just then, a loud thud echoed behind me. The tall figure stepped out of the shadows, its face obscured. My legs froze. It moved closer, and I could finally see more than a dark shape. The vague form started to resolve. Tall, elongated limbs, skin like bark, and eyes that seemed to flicker with a cold light. I had to know what it was, but deep down, I wanted to run so badly. "Why are you here?" "Why?" it asked, though the voice felt like it came from all around me rather than from its mouth. I opened my mouth to respond, but no words came out. I felt an overwhelming need to answer, to explain. "I'm looking for, I don't know, answers?" The last word barely left my lips. What answers could I possibly provide to whatever this thing was? The figure shifted slightly, tilting its head as if considering my words. "You don't belong here," it whispered, the voice like wind through the trees. Suddenly the air grew dense. It felt as if the weight of the woods pressed in on me. I could hear buzzing now. It wasn't my imagination. It was real, growing louder, like thousands of wings. My heart raced again, panic threatening to swallow me. I needed to escape. I took a step back, breaking the tension, and turned toward the exit of the clearing. That's when I noticed it, an unmistakable path appearing, one that hadn't been there before. It wound through the trees, beckoning. My instincts screamed at me to run, to trust the path. I dashed forward, pushing aside branches, and sprinted down the trail without looking back. The buzzing intensified behind me, but I didn't dare glance back. I had to keep moving. I felt the ground thrum beneath my feet. It wasn't just the sound of wings anymore. It was something else, something darker. As I broke through the trees and into the fading light of the forest, I nearly stumbled onto the familiar dirt road. My car was just ahead. Relief flooded over me, and I hurried forward. But as I reached the vehicle, I stopped short. Parked nearby was a figure, the same tall silhouette from the woods, standing motionless in the distance. I fumbled for my keys, but my hands shook violently. I wanted to scream, but I couldn't make a sound. What was happening? I couldn't tell if I was free or if I'd just stepped into another trap. The figure remained still, watching. I had escaped the woods, but I couldn't shake the feeling that the woods had not yet finished with me. I felt trapped in place, just staring at the figure. My car sat right there, but the weight of dread locked my feet to the ground. I blinked, hoping it would disappear, but it didn't. It remained, still as stone, an ominous shadow against the dimming light. I took a deep breath and forced myself to think. I have to get out of here. Just as that thought crossed my mind, the figure took a step forward. I gasped and fumbled for my keys again, desperately searching for the lock button on my keychain. "Don't come any closer," I shouted, my voice cracking. My heart pounded painfully against my ribs. It stopped. There was a stillness in the air, like the forest was holding its breath with me. "Why did you leave?" The voice echoed again, filling the empty space as if it had woven through the branches surrounding me. I glanced at the pendant still on the ground, its glimmer almost mocking me now. Suddenly, I felt an absurd sense of guilt, but there was something more, a connection. "I didn't know what I was getting into," I yelled back, anger and fear mixing in my chest. I just wanted answers. I wanted to demand what it wanted, why it was lurking here in the dark. Instead, I felt pathetic, talking to it like it mattered. Then the figure raised an arm, and I instinctively flinched, my eyes darting toward my car. But it didn't attack. Instead, it pointed, not at me, but at the trees behind. I hesitated before turning my head. The woods seemed to pulse, shadows curling around trunks. The buzzing from before returned, now sharp and alive, making my skin crawl. Then I saw it. A cluster of lights flickering in the distance between the trees. They blinked erratically, almost like fireflies, but there was something about them that felt wrong. I felt an urge to move closer, as if they were inviting me. "You should go," the figure said, its voice softer now, almost sorrowful. "They need you." "Go?" I looked back at the figure, confusion washing over me. "What do you mean?" But it didn't answer. Instead, it melted back into the shadows, disappearing as if it had never been there. My heart raced, raw panic cutting through the fog of uncertainty. The lights continued to blink. I wanted to run, to jump into my car and speed away. But something deep inside me urged me to follow. I took a shaking step toward the inviting glow. The buzzing thrummed louder, and the forest around me seemed to hold its breath. I couldn't ignore it. I found myself moving, drawn to those lights against my better judgment. With trembling legs, I pushed through the thick underbrush and toward the source. The trees opened up, revealing a small clearing illuminated by dozens of luminous orbs floating in midair. That's when I saw it. In the center of the clearing, a stone structure jutted up from the ground, just like the altar in the woods, but different, almost pulsating. A sense of foreboding gripped me. I had entered a place I didn't belong. I wanted to turn back, but the orbs began to swirl around me, lifting the weight of fear. Before I made sense of what was happening, they dove toward me, and everything went dark. I woke up in a haze, the darkness pressing down on me like a thick blanket. My head throbbed, and I struggled to sit up. The clearing was gone, replaced by a dense blackness that swallowed everything around me. Panic churned in my stomach, and I called out, "Hello? Is anyone there?" Silence. I felt the ground beneath me, rough and uneven. It was damp. I turned my head, trying to find something, anything. My pulse raced as I blinked, hoping my eyes would adjust. But it felt as if I was completely alone here, lost in a void. Just when I thought I'd have to stumble blindly, a faint glimmer appeared to my right, cutting through the pitch black. I pushed myself up and carefully made my way toward it. Each step felt deliberate, slow, as if I were moving through molasses. The glow grew brighter, and soon I found myself standing before another pile of stones. This one was different, jagged and incomplete, surrounded by smaller stones that seemed to pulsate with that same eerie light. I felt drawn to it. I reached out, touching one of the stones, and a sudden jolt of energy surged through me. It was disorienting, sending waves of heat radiating from my fingertips. I pulled my hand back, alarmed and confused. "Why am I here?" I whispered, looking around. My breath quickened as I sensed movement nearby. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw one of the orbs float from the ground and hover just above the stone. It shifted colors, cycling through hues of blue and green, almost like it was trying to communicate. "What do you want from me?" I demanded, my voice shaky. Instinctively, I took a step back, but the orb floated closer, the light wrapping around me like a warm embrace. I felt a strange warmth. Images flashed before me, faces I didn't recognize, moments burned into my memory but felt foreign. I staggered, overwhelmed. It was like watching someone else's life unfold. "Stop!" I shouted, clenching my fists. "I don't understand." And then, abruptly, the orb pulled away, retreating into the dark, leaving me alone again. My heart pounded and fear clawed at my throat. I turned in circles, frantically trying to make sense of it all. Suddenly, there was a low rumble. The ground beneath me began to shake, and I fell to my knees. I gritted my teeth, bracing myself against the shifting earth. As the rumbling ceased, a split in the ground formed nearby, revealing a narrow crevice filled with an otherworldly light. My body screamed to flee, to run back to the safety of my car. But curiosity held me in place. What was this place? What had I become a part of? I took a cautious step toward the crevice. That's when I heard it again, the voice from before. "There's no escape from what's coming." My heart sank. I didn't want to know what that meant, but I felt I had no choice. A moment of stillness hung heavily in the air before I turned back toward the glowing stones, realizing that whatever this was, it was just the beginning. I stood frozen, the weight of the voice echoing in my mind. It felt like a warning, a sinister reminder that I might already be trapped in something beyond my control. My knees wobbled slightly, still recovering from the tremors and the shock of everything I had just encountered. I peered into the crevice, the light within shifting and pulsating. The air felt alive, electric. Despite the fear gnawing at me, I couldn't help but lean closer. What lay at the bottom? Was it a way out, or a deeper descent into whatever this nightmare was? As I hovered at the edge, I noticed tiny sparks flitting around like fireflies. My pulse quickened. They resembled the orbs, but were smaller, darting in erratic patterns. I straightened, my mind racing. Could they lead me to answers, or was it a trap? Without thinking, I stepped forward, grabbing a nearby jagged rock for balance. I peered into the crevice, where the light seemed to beckon me. Up close, I could see swirling colors, deep purples merging with brilliant golds. It was mesmerizing, and for a heartbeat I felt calm. But as quickly as it came, that calm was shattered. A shadow moved through the light, something much larger than the orbs that had come before. Panic surged again, and I jerked back from the crevice, dropping the rock. That's when I heard it. A low growl, deep and rumbling, vibrating through the stone beneath my feet. My heart raced anew, and every instinct screamed for me to flee. I turned to run, but stumbled, gripping the stones for support. Just then, the light intensified, flooding the area around me. The shadow materialized, pulling forth from the crevice like an unseen force compelling it. I squinted against the brightness, trying to make sense of it. There in the glow, a figure began to take shape. A creature. It floated just above the ground, its form shrouded in that same swirling light. It had multiple eyes, each twinkling like stars, and limbs that seemed to shift and change before my very eyes. I couldn't tell if it was dangerous or curious. Terror rooted me to the spot. It felt as if time had stilled, just me and this being locked in an uncertain standoff. I wanted to scream or run back into the darkness, but my heart wouldn't allow me to move. "Help us," the creature said, its voice echoing inside my mind, both soothing and terrifying at once. "You've been chosen to witness." "What do you mean?" I managed to say, the words choking out. "Chosen for what?" But before it could respond, a rumble erupted again, more violent this time. I dropped to my knees, fear consuming me. This time, the ground split wider, and the crevice groaned as if it were opening up to swallow something or someone. That's when I saw it. A figure emerging from the shadows, a person stumbling, covered in dirt and leaves. My breath caught in my throat. Who was this? Did they fall in too? Were they alive? "Run!" the stranger shouted, panic in their eyes. But before I could react, the creature moved, blocking my path, and I stumbled back, cornered between the glowing entities and the dark maw of the crevice. I was trapped, and I could feel the weight of choices weighing on me, pressing me deeper into the unknown. The fear coursing through me became palpable as the creature shifted closer. It hovered mere feet away, its multitude of eyes glimmering with a strange intensity. I held my breath, caught in a whirlwind of confusion and panic. I wanted to know more about the stranger, but I was more concerned about the creature before me. "Wait," I shouted, trying to form a plan. "What do you want from me?" The creature's shining eyes dimmed slightly, and I thought I detected a flicker, frustration, perhaps? Just as it seemed to gather itself to respond, another wave of tremor shook the ground. I lost my balance, falling to one side, and instinctively scrambled away from the churning crevice. I could hear the stranger shouting again, but their words were drowned out by the chaos swirling around us. "Get back!" they yelled, their voice thick with fear. I turned to see them grasping a branch, brandishing it like a weapon. The creature shifted at the sudden movement, drawing back slightly. "We need to go now." I hesitated, torn between the glowing entity and the figure that was desperately trying to protect me. My instinct pushed me towards the stranger. I forced myself to scramble toward them, every nerve in me screaming to escape whatever malevolent force was at play. "What's going on?" I gasped as I reached their side, my heart still racing. "Who are you?" "I don't know," they replied, looking around, eyes wide. Their bodies shook slightly, and I realized how terrified they truly were. "But that thing, it's not safe. We need to find a way out." As if to emphasize their words, the creature let out a resonant growl that vibrated through the very air we breathed. The light grew more intense, stinging our eyes. I staggered back, fear clawing at my throat. "Why did you come here?" The creature spoke directly into my mind once more, its tone strangely urgent. "You must understand." But before it could elaborate, I felt the pull of the ground, something writhing beneath the surface. I glanced down and gasped as tendrils of darkness curled around my feet, latching on like they wanted to drag me down. "Help!" I shouted, struggling against the grip. The stranger lunged toward me, the branch aimed at the creeping shadows. They swung wildly, managing to sever one of the dark tendrils. It vanished into the earth with a shriek, and I felt a rush of relief. "Keep moving," they urged. Without a second thought, I grabbed the stranger's arm, and together we ran toward a narrow path that seemed to curve away from the chaos. The ground continued to shake, and I could feel the creature's presence looming behind us, but we pushed forward, hearts pounding in unison. We rounded a bend, and suddenly it was quiet. The weight of the tension lifted for just a moment. Ahead of us lay a faint light filtering through the underbrush. But before I could even process what this meant, a chilling realization struck me. What if the creature followed us? What if it was only biding its time, waiting for us to let our guard down? "It might still be out there," I managed to whisper, though it felt like whatever safety we found was already slipping. My gut twisted with uncertainty. "Then we'll keep moving," the stranger replied, their determination palpable. "Whatever that thing was, we're not giving up now." Just as we pushed toward the light, I heard a distant, echoing call from the crevice. "The choice is not over." My breath caught in my throat. We hadn't escaped yet, and whatever was waiting out there was still very much a part of this nightmare. The light grew brighter as we pressed forward, revealing a clearing ahead. I felt a swell of hope. Maybe this would lead us to safety. But as we stepped into the light, that hope quickly turned to dread.
The clearing was unnaturally still. The trees bordering it stood tall and silent, their branches interlocking like a web above. The ground was awash with pale grass and strange glowing flowers. There were no signs of life, no birds, no rustling leaves. It felt wrong. "Is this it?" I asked, looking at the stranger who seemed equally bewildered. "Is there a way out?" Instead of answering, they let out a low gasp. I turned to see their eyes fixed on something beyond the trees, filled with a mix of fear and disbelief. Following their gaze, my stomach twisted. The creature was there. It loomed at the edge of the clearing, hovering just outside of the glow. This time, its eyes were more intense, reflecting the light as if they were stars. It didn't come closer, but I could feel its gaze weighing down on us. "Stay behind me," the stranger urged, stepping forward with the branch raised again. "Whatever it wants, we're not going to give in." I wanted to argue, to tell them the branch wouldn't stand a chance against whatever that thing was, but fear stopped me. I was paralyzed, caught in the tension that filled the air. The creature turned its attention to me, the multiple eyes narrowing as if assessing my very existence. "Your choice is yet to be made," it said, the words surging through my mind like whispers echoing in a cavern. "Step forward, and all will be revealed." "What choice?" I shouted, my voice cracking. "What do you mean?" "You must decide," it continued, unfazed by my panic. "Face the truth of your arrival, or succumb to the shadows." I glanced at the stranger, who seemed equally perplexed. "What truth?" I murmured, feeling a mix of curiosity and despair. The breath left my lungs as the ground shook once more, but this time it felt different. It wasn't just the tremors beneath our feet. I felt something else, an overwhelming pull, beckoning me toward the creature. It was as if the very earth wanted me to go to it. "Don't," the stranger said, gripping my arm firmly. "Don't listen to it." Before I could respond, the glowing flowers around us began to pulse, illuminating our surroundings in strobing bursts of light. Each pulse felt like a heartbeat, pushing against the suffocating silence. Panic bubbled in my chest as I struggled to make sense of everything happening around me. Then, out of the chaos, a vision flashed in my mind. Images of a dark forest, a path leading deeper into the unknown, and a face that looked painfully familiar. It was my face, but older, twisted by anguish. "Make your choice," the creature commanded again, its voice rising in urgency. I stumbled backward, trying to shake off the vision. Something dark in the depths of my mind whispered that this was more than just a choice. It was an invitation to a truth I wasn't sure I was ready to face. "Please," I begged, feeling the ground slip beneath my feet. "What do you want from me?" That's when I saw it, the shadowy tendrils creeping back into the clearing, emerging from the depths of the forest, ready to reclaim what was theirs. "We need to run," I shouted, the fear igniting adrenaline in my veins. But the stranger didn't move. The creature's eyes glowed brighter as it leaned forward, and a chill crept into my bones. The choice it spoke of was not only one of my own, this was something far greater. In that moment of chaos and confusion, I felt time elongate, a heartbeat stretching into an endless abyss. My heart thudded against my ribs, reflexes pitted against instinct. The tendrils drew closer, snaking through the grass with a hunger that left a metallic taste in my mouth. "Make your choice." The creature's voice reverberated through my mind, demanding a decision I wasn't ready to face. "Run, we need to go," I yelled again, trying to pull the stranger along, but they stood frozen, staring at the creature with an intensity that unnerved me. "Why are you hesitating?" "Look," they pointed back, shock etching their features. I turned, horrified, as the tendrils melded into the pulsing flowers, twisting them into grotesque shapes, the colors darkening to an ominous shade. "Don't you see?" the stranger finally pressed, just barely keeping their voice steady. "It's not here to hurt us. It wants us to understand." "Understand what?" I shouted back, desperation creeping into my voice.
What could possibly make this okay? But the visage of my older self flickered in and out of my mind, beckoning from the shadows. In that split second, a choice wove itself into the fabric of my consciousness. It looped and tangled, colored by anxiety and twisted by fear. And I wondered, should I run from the light? Was the truth lurking beneath the surface, hidden away like the weight on my chest? The creature hovered closer, weaving a net of light that shimmered against the darkness. Its multitude of eyes bore into my soul, pleading as tendrils reached out like hands, expressing a yearning I couldn't comprehend. "You will never escape what you've awakened," it warned, voice cozy yet full of dread. "But you can choose to embrace it." My instinct screamed at me to run, to flee from the glowing orbs and cryptic shadows all at once. Yet my feet remained anchored in place. The mental tug-of-war was relentless. "Trust me," the stranger urged, their voice slicing through the tension. "You don't have to follow." But I caught the flicker of something terrible behind their tone, a fear that held them back but mirrored my own. "Do you see it?" I breathed. "Do you feel it?" I could sense it now, the suffocating darkness wrapping around us like a shroud, and the divine whisper tempting my senses with promises of understanding. It coaxed me to take a step toward the creature and look deeper into the void of choices laid out before me. And still, the tendrils curled closer, ready to reclaim what they believed was theirs. "Make a choice," the creature's voice reverberated again in waves, blending desire with desperation. Shadows danced at the edge of my vision, growing restless. My heart raced, and grief surged within me. Grief for opportunities lost, for decisions I had made without understanding the repercussions, for giving up on dreams left behind. And as my thoughts spiraled, a realization struck me. This moment was not just about monsters lurking in the woods. It was about confronting the darkness within myself. What would I leave behind if I ran again? "Okay," I whispered at last, my voice steady despite the tempest swirling within me. "I'll embrace it." With that, I took a tentative step forward, closer to the creature. The tendrils seemed to pause, waiting. Everything shifted, the ground trembling beneath my feet as I reached for the light, the stones around me pulsing with energy. "What?" the stranger exclaimed, confusion etched across their face. And then, with my heart pounding, I plunged into the light. The moment enveloped me, not the cold shadows of the crevice, but a warmth radiating from the depths of my own heart. Fluids of golden essence flowed through me, illuminating all the hidden corners of my mind, washing away my fears. I felt memories flit by, laughter, friendships, and the vibrant colors of connection. But as quickly as warmth filled me, it was replaced by an aching realization. The darkness I'd feared entwined with my existence, much like light and shadow entwined in nature. The creature's presence glided beside me, a guide through every regret, every heartache I tried to bury. "We exist as whole beings," it whispered, its voice now soothing. "But you must acknowledge both light and dark." Suddenly, in a heart-shattering instant, I unraveled truth after truth before myself. Sun would eventually rise again after every night. The forests would continue to grow, and shadows would dance across the floor as they always had. There would always be choices, choices that allow for growth, healing. And then the light flickered, and I found myself in that clearing once again. But it was different now. The tendrils had receded. I stood with clarity. The figure was still there, watching, but their stance was no longer hostile. They looked younger, free from the chains of fear. I turned back, realizing that everything still entangled around me. The choices I made would forever echo in the hollow spaces left behind. "Choose to acknowledge," the creature urged one last time, though gentler now. "Face what is unseen." My heart swelled with uncertainty, but I took a deep breath, inviting the light to settle within me.
I felt lightness, the promise of a future embraced with ambiguity, and I finally understood. I was both the hunter and the hunted in these woods. The forest never truly turned its back on me. It simply reflected the battle I had yet to confront. What remained unanswered in the flicker of dusk felt profoundly more intricate, but I would face it nonetheless. I emerged from those woods not entirely free, but transformed, a whisper of gratitude dancing upon my lips. I glanced back at the shadows retreating into the rustling trees, realizing
I had become part of that eternal cycle. The journey was far from complete. I may never truly comprehend the depth of what awaited in the woods, but it had changed me beyond measure. I stepped forward, ready or not, to embrace whatever it was that lay ahead.